Well, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, in my multicolor and colorless, I said there is no card that hit me that was just like that. That is a game-winning 10 out of 10. This card is a game-winning 10 out of 10. And we're back. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Roll School. My name is Nathaniel, one of the hosts here at the channel. I am joined off-screen by my lovely co-host, Ashley. Say hi to everyone.
Hi, everybody.
There she is. And we are bringing you guys the next episode 2 of our Llorwyn Eclipsed limited set review. So we are now off of multicolor and colorless cards and onto the white cards. I'm super excited to be making this series. We hope you guys are enjoying it as we get ready for Llorwyn pre-release and we can finally say goodbye to Avatar. It was a good set, but I'm definitely ready to move on. If you guys are excited for Llorwyn, make sure you leave it down in the comments below. Let us know what your favorite cards are, what you're most excited for with the set, and of course, leave a like, comment, and subscribe. It definitely helps out the channel. You guys are awesome. You've made Roll School what it is, and without further ado, we're going to jump into things. So our first white card is a 3 mana, 2 and a white, Adept Water Shaper, Merfolk Cleric, 3/4, already good. 3 mana, 3/4. Other tap creatures you control have indestructible. Even better, you're probably going to bring this back. You're probably just going to hold this back and swing all your Merfolks, but this is great. At least a 7 out of 10, probably closer to an 8 out of 10. I mean, just because the mana to power line or stat line is already so good. Oh, that's pretty. All right, moving on. We got a Planeswalker here, a Johnny Outland Chaperone. So we've got 3 mana, Legendary Planeswalker Ajani. 3 loyalty is what it enters with. It's got a +1 to create a 1/1 Kithkin, green and white Kithkin. It's got -2 to do 4 damage to target tapped creature. And it's got -8. Look at the top X card of your library. X is your life total. You may put any number of non-land permanent cards with mana value 3 or less from among them onto the battlefield. So this is obviously really here just to be a big 1/1 generator. But if you need to, this is here to be a 1/1 generator or deal 4 damage and be some removal. But hey, I think it's pretty strong for, 3 mana getting to do those, and I think it's fine. 7 out of 10. Not like a mythic that's going to steal the game, 10 out of 10, but I think it's very strong. Appeal to Irdu, I don't know. 3 and a white instant. It does have Convoke. 1 or 2 target creatures each get +2/+1 until end of turn. I don't think this is great because you're going to have to tap like 2 or 3 creatures for this to be worth it. It's fine. I don't think it's very good, though. Combat tricks are already kind of weak, and I feel like this one is kind of especially weak. I'm going to give this one a 3 out of 10, maybe even a 2. This does not feel very playable. Bark of Doran, 1 and a white artifact equipment. Equipped creature gets +0/+1. As long as equipped creature's toughness is greater than its power, it assigns combat damage equal to its toughness rather than its power, which is nice. And it only has equip 1, so you can put this on something and honestly give it quite the buff depending on what type of creature it is. This is fine, but you really want to build around it. I do think the tree folk of the deck are all built around having high toughness and low power, but you'd have to be in that deck. I don't know exactly what colors that is because this is white, so it's probably a 3 or a 4 out of 10. All right, Brigade Klachan's Heart. I don't know. 3 and a white. 2 and a white. For a 3/2, Kithkin Warrior. Whenever it enters or transforms, you create a 1/1. So it's 3 mana for a 3/2 and get a 1/1. That's already good. Beginning of your first main phase, you may pay a green if you do transform it. So then you, boom, transform it into another 3/2. However, this one is Dune's Mind. And this one, you cannot cast it on this side, but it can tap to create X green or X white, where X is the number of other creatures you control, so massive ramp. And then at the beginning of your first main phase, you may pay a white. If you do, you can transform it back. The reason you would want to do that is if you want to make more creatures, which of course will then make it tap for more mana. Really good kind of synergy here, especially for those enters triggers. This is really strong. This is the exact type of rare you want for the Kithkin deck. I'm going to say 7 out of 10. Burdened Stoneback. This is 1 and a white giant warrior 4/4, but it enters with 2 -1/-1 counters on it, so 2 mana 2/2. 1 and a white, remove a counter from it. Target creature gains indestructible until end of turn. I actually like that a lot. And it does say activate only as a sorcery, so I don't like it as much as I did just a second ago. But I think it's fine. Get your 2 mana 2/2 that can potentially be larger, but you do have to sink a lot of mana into it. So the activate only as a sorcery is not great. I won't lie. The activate is only a sorcery, so I'm going to end up giving this a 3 out of 4, I think. Maybe a 4 out of 4. Champion of the Klachan, or Klachan, or I don't know. I don't know how you pronounce it. 3 and a white Kithkin Knight. So we're getting a new Knight. My interest is piqued as a Sudar Jabari player. 4 mana, 4/5, Flash. As an additional cost to cast this spell, behold a Kithkin and exile it. So exile Kithkin you control, or a Kithkin card from your hand. Well, I'm not going to be able to play this in Sudar Jabari. When this creature leaves the battlefield, return the exile card to its owner's hand. Okay, so you basically have to give up this is like a 2-for-1 card here. The Flash is nice because you could catch something off guard with it, and you could get your enters triggers, but it's not as broken as it seems. Probably about a 6 out of 10. Alright. Klachan Festival. I wonder if Kithkin are basically like their halflings or hobbits. 2 and a white, Kindred Enchantment Kithkin. Whenever this enchantment enters, you create 2 1/1 green and white Kithkins, and you can pay 5 to create a 1/1 green and white Kithkin. So it's just a way to get more Kithkin. I mean, it counts as a Kithkin, it makes 2 Kithkin, and then you can pay 5 to make more Kithkin as something to do with mana sink. 3 mana make 2 1/1s is probably good. That's probably fine. Like 3 mana make 2 1/1s, this counts as a Kithkin, and then on top of that, having a mana sink for later is fine. This is probably around a 3 or a 4 out of 10. Crib swap. I believe we've seen this before. We're just getting a reprint of this. Yep, we have seen this before. So it's cool to see that we're getting a reprint of it because it's a pretty popular, cheap card to play. 2 and a white, instant, shapeshifter, changeling, exile target creature. Its controller creates a 1/1 colorless shapeshifter token with changeling. So just lets you exile anything for 3 mana. This is going to be pretty solid removal. More often than not, man, I am having yawning issues today. More often than not, you're going to be exiling something way scarier than a 1/1. So for 3 mana, it's not the end of the world. And you can do it at instant speed, so that's also beneficial. This is probably going to be solid removal in what I mean, obviously I was in multicolor and colorless, so I'm not expecting to see a lot of removal. But this is going to be a good removal in the set. It's probably going to perform well, so I'm going to say 5 out of 10. Curious Colossus. This is a mythic 7 mana 7/7. When this giant enters, each creature target opponent controls loses all abilities, becomes a coward in addition to its other types, and has base power and toughness 1/1. Well, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, in my multicolor and colorless, I said there is no card that hit me that was just like that. That is a game-winning 10 out of 10. This card is a game-winning 10 out of 10. A 7 mana 7/7. I was expecting this to say until end of turn. Each creature target opponent controls loses all abilities, becomes a coward in addition to its other types, and has base power and toughness 1/1. That is crazy. I want to see what the alternate art of this one looks like. Oh, look at that. The art in this set is really cute. Okay, yeah, 10 out of 10. No questions asked. Eridu, Carrier of Dawn. I feel like we've seen this one. This one got spoiled. So 5 mana, 5/5 flying lifelink. Creature spells you cast have Convoke, so you can cast them for cheaper. At the beginning of your first main phase, you may pay a black. If you do, transform Eridu into Isilu. I don't know if I'm pronouncing these right. Carrier of Twilight. Elemental God flying lifelink, so it's still a 5/5 flying lifelink. However, this one says each other non-token creature you control has persist, which means if it dies and it had no -1/-1 counters on it, you can bring it back with a -1/-1 counter on it. Especially really good with enchanted battlefield triggers. 5 mana 5/5 flying lifelink is already an absolute bomb. Plus, you're just getting benefit off of this, whether it's convoking your things in or getting the ability to have your creatures come back if they die. Both of these are extremely powerful. If this isn't a 10 out of 10, it's definitely a 9. But I haven't seen enough to say 10 out of 10 on most cards, so I'm going to say 10 out of 10 on this one just because it seems a good step above the rest of them. Encumbered Reejery, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. 1 and a white, Merfolk Soldier, enters with 3 -1/-1 counters on it. Whenever this creature becomes tapped, while it has a -1/-1 counter on it, remove 1. So it's going to enter as a 2/1, but it will attack as a 3/2. And then just get bigger from there if it doesn't get killed. So honestly, the fact that when this becomes tapped, you lose -1/-1 counter with all of the Convoke triggers and the ability to attack, this is a really good card. I like this a lot as a 2-drop that can definitely get some value out of it even if you only spent 2 mana on it, right? Because typically what we see with stuff like this is spend 2 mana, then spend more mana to make it bigger, but this can naturally get bigger as you use it for things. So this is really good. Like this a lot. 5 out of 10. Everstrike's Gift. 1 mana enchantment or enchant creature. Enchanted creature gets +1/+0 and has flying. Can't wait for this to go in all the mono white standard enchantment decks. 1 and a white Blight 2. Return this card from your graveyard to your hand. Activate only as a sorcery, but you have to put 2 plus -1/-1 counters on things you have. I mean, this is fine to give something flying. You know, in this deck, in this game, we talk about making evasion. So this isn't a creature with evasion. This is a card that gives a creature you already have evasion. That's typically not great, even just for 1 white. But you could play this. So right now, I'm going to give it a 3 out of 10. Flock Imposter, that is adorable art. So 2 and a white, Changeling with Flash for 2/2. It does have flying. Whenever this creature enters, return up to 1 other target creature you control to its owner's hand. So you can do this as an element of protection, but you can also see that as an element of cost as well, right? Because if you're just wanting to play this, you are going to have to return up to 1 other target creature. Oh, no, sorry. It says up to. So you do not, that's not a downside. That is only for protection. That's really nice. I like this card a lot. It can go in a lot of decks because of the Changeling. I'm going to give it a 5 out of 10. Gallant Foul Knight. 3 and a white, Kithkin Knight. When this creature enters, creatures you control get +1/+0 until end of turn. Kithkin creatures you control also gain first strike until end of turn. That's pretty neat. So 4 mana, just under the curve that it should be in, being a 3/4. However, it does buff all of your other Kithkin, but only until end of turn, which isn't great. So this is kind of like a 1 big drop. Because of that, I'm going to give it a 4 out of 10, maybe even a 3, between 3 and 4. I guess that's 3.5. Gold Meadow Nomad. 1 white creature, Kithkin Scout. So 1 mana, 1/2. Pay 1 white, exile this card from your graveyard, and can create a 1/1. This is great. I mean, 1 mana, 1/2 is fine. And then to have something that you can do from your graveyard with it as well. If it dies, if you sacrifice it, whatever that might be. Solid. 4 out of 10. Keep Out. 1 and a white instant. Deals 4 damage to target tapped creature. Fine. Decent enough removal. And it has that option for destroying target enchantment. It basically says destroy target attacking creature. Obviously, Vigilance gets around it. But I do find being able to do 4 damage is probably going to be pretty decent. So I'm going to give it a 4 out of 10. Moving on. Kin Binding. 3 and 2 white enchantment. Creatures you control get +X/+X, where X is the number of creatures that enter the battlefield under your control this turn. At the beginning of combat on your turn, create a 1/1. Okay, so it's a 5 mana enchantment that at the beginning of combat, so it can enter and do something. So the turn it enters, you get a 1/1, and everything gets buffed by +1/+1. That's not bad. I don't hate that. I don't think it's great. It's going to end up getting a 5 out of 10 for me. I think that it doesn't do enough. But if you are spamming the Kithkin, it could do something. So maybe there's more to it than what I'm giving it. I'm not 100% sure. Maybe it deserves a... I don't know what I gave it. I don't know. I'll give it a 5 or... Yeah, I'll give it a 5 out of 10. Kinsbale Aspirant. 1 white Kithkin Citizen for 2/1. Already fine. As an additional cost to cast the spell, you have to behold the Kithkin or pay 2. Whenever another creature you control enters, this creature gets +1/+1 until end of turn. So it can become a 3/2, but that's not anything crazy. This is really good if you can behold another Kithkin and you can just get a good 1-drop, but it's not like insane, right? Like it's basically a Savannah Lions, right? Basically a Savannah Lions that might be better on some turns, but has a harder chance to be cast. Not crazy. I'll give it a 3 out of 10. Kinscare Sentry, 1 and a white Kithkin Soldier. First strike lifelink, so 2 mana 2/2 with first strike lifelink. Already really good. Whenever this creature attacks, you may put a creature card with mana value X or less from your hand onto the battlefield, tapped and attacking, where X is the number of attack. That's huge. That is huge. That is huge, huge, huge. Can you imagine this in like white green decks with Craterhoof Behemoth? If you attack with 8 creatures, you just get to cast what? Whenever the creature attacks, you may put a creature card with mana value. I mean, this thing has to attack, but if you can buff it up another way, this is awesome. This is awesome. 8 out of 10. This is a really strong... I mean, I know that sometimes we get caught up in like, oh, it's not as good as an 8-drop. Well, it's not an 8-drop. This thing's a 2-drop. This thing's a 2-drop. And then you attack with 3 creatures, you get a free 3. This thing's awesome. 8 out of 10, maybe even a 9 out of 10. This thing is incredible. One of these days. Oh, it's thinking. I think this is the right card. This feels like the right card. Kith Keeper. 6 and a white creature elemental. Okay, so 7 mana 3/3. When this creature enters, it creates X 1/1 white and green and white Kith King creature tokens, where X is the number of colors among permanents you control. So if you are in the multicolored deck, I don't think that's going to work out great for people. Tap 3 untapped creatures you control, and it gets +3/+0 and gains flying. I don't think this is great. I don't think this is great at all. 7 mana is way too much for this effect. Obviously, the whole point is going to be to play a bunch of hybrid cards and get a bunch of the color types. So, basically, you're playing white-green, so you run, like, the green-blue cards, even though you're not playing blue, just to get the colors on the battlefield. So I think it's doable, but I think it's a stretch. So I'm going to give it a 3 out of 10. Liminal Hold, 3 and a white enchantment. When it enters, exile it to one target non-land permanent an opponent controls until this enchantment leaves the battlefield and you gain 2 life. So it's 1 more for... Yeah, this is worse than a Banishing Light, right? So, I got to give it like a 3 out of 10. It's just a little too expensive. Maybe I can give it a 4 out of 10. Just because Banishing Light is really strong, even now in Limited, just because removal kind of scales with the things that you want to remove. But I don't want to pay 4 for this effect. Meander's Guide, 2 and a white creature, Merfolk Scout. So 3 mana, 3/2. Whenever it attacks, you may tap another untapped Merfolk you control to return target creature card may value 3 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. Nice that this goes back to the battlefield. That's pretty strong. You do have to attack something. You have to tap something else, but it's not that bad. So I'm gonna say like 5 out of 10. Moonlit Lamenter, 2 and a white creature, Treefolk Cleric. So 3 mana, 2/5, but it enters with a -1/-1, so 3 mana, 1/4. But you can remove a counter from it to draw a card. That's really good. So this is exactly what you want to put blight counters on, because then you can just keep having 2 mana draw a card. So I really like this card. I think that's really creative design, and I think it's actually going to be really strong as well to have a consistent 2 mana draw card ability. So I'm going to call this one I'm going to call it a 5 out of 10. I'm going to call it a 5. All right, Morning Tide's Light. Here we go. Mythic Sorcery. 3 and a white sorcery. Exile any number of target creatures. At the beginning of the next end step, return those cards to the battlefield tapped under their owner's control. Until your next turn, prevent all damage that would be dealt to you, and then exile Morning Tide's Light. Exile any number of target creatures. At the beginning of the next end step, return those creatures. So you can blink your whole battlefield for 4. Or you can exile anybody else's creatures for this turn. So you can blink just the stuff that's going to be beneficial for you to blink. You can get rid of the stuff that's not beneficial for other opponents to blink. All of them come back tapped. And then until your next turn, prevent all damage that would be dealt to you. That's a really strong sorcery. It's not an instant, but it's a really strong sorcery to just kind of buy yourself another turn. Yeah, this is gonna win games in Limited though, right? In Limited, this is just gonna be like cast when you have lethal and win, right? That's what this is cast when you have lethal and win. I mean, that's really strong. I'm gonna give it a 9 out of 10. It's a little expensive, but I'm going to give it a 9 out of 10. Personify. 1 and a white instant. Exile target creature you control. Then return that card to the battlefield under its owner's control. Create a 1/1 colorless shapeshifter creature token with Changeling. So you get to blink and then get a 1/1. I mean, if you have a really good ETB trigger, then that's worth it. But I don't know how much of that there is, so I'm going to give this a 4 out of 10. Maybe even a 3. Protective Response, 2 and a white instant with Convoke, destroy target attacking or blocking creature. This is really solid because this could be 1 mana instant removal if you have creatures to tap, and you can of course tap them after they blocked. So this is premium removal. I'm actually going to give this a 6 out of 10. This thing is great. I mean, they do have to be attacking or blocking, but it's still great. All right, Pirate Strike. 2 and a white as an additional cost, cast a spell Blight 2. Choose one if the spell's additional cost was paid. Oh, you may Blight 2. Choose both. So you can destroy target artifact or enchantment, destroy target creature with mana value 3 or greater, or do both. This will be another pretty good card, just because it is premium removal. 3 mana, destroy most things that you're going to want to destroy is a solid removal spell. And you don't even have to blight if that's all you're doing. So that's pretty good. Yeah, 5 or 6 out of 10. Reluctant Dawnguard. 2 and a white, Kithkin Soldier. This creature enters with 2/1/1, so it's going to be a 3-mana 2/2. Whenever another creature you control enters while this creature has a -1/1 on it, you remove it. Again, I like that. I like having the ability to just get this thing larger. I don't love it to death, so it's probably a 4 out of 10 just because it's just a body. But hey, 4 out of 10. The fact that it can be and can pretty easily be a 3-mana 4/4 without spending additional resources. You're going to just do those things anyways. Riss, the Evermore. Riss, I'm just going to go Riss. Legendary creature, Elf Warrior with Flash. So 2-mana 2/2 with Flash. Whenever it enters, another target creature you control gains Persist until end of turn, which is really cool. So if they're about to kill something, you can persist it so that it comes back with a -1/1. And then a white tap, remove any number of counters from target creature you control. That is awesome. Because if you have the ability to... If you have like this and the other persist card, like this is going to be really useful. Just to get rid of the -1s as well. If you have to blight other things. It's not like a win the game card, but it's an extremely strong 2-drop. I'll give it a 6 out of 10. Maybe, no, I'll give it a 7 out of 10. Riverguard's Reflexes, 1 and a white instant. Target creature gets +2/+2 and gains first strike until end of turn. And you untap it. I do like untapping and the first strike when you see combat tricks like this. Just because if you can get it big enough to kill, the first strike really carries. Because then it's actually like a 1-for-1. You don't typically want to trade. And untapping it can really help catch people off guard and give you some benefit here. All things considered, I don't love combat tricks, but 4 out of 10. That one's actually a pretty good one. Shore Lurker, 3 and a white, creature, Merfolk Scout, flying. So 4-mana 3/3 flyer. When it enters, you surveil one. I don't know if I'm getting enough out of this. I do like that it's a Merfolk, and I mean, surveilling is nice, but it is a little below stat line. Now the flying's nice. It's fine. 3 or 4 out of 10. Slumbering Walker, 3 and 2 white, giant warrior, 4/7, but it will enter as a 2/5, so 5-mana 2/5, not great. At the beginning of your end step, you may remove a counter from this creature. When you do, return target creature card with power 2 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. So you're going to want to have triggers for that, but if you do, this thing's really solid. Is it rare? But I do think it can be pretty strong. I will give it a 6 out of 10, maybe even a 7 if you have good enough things to hit, but I think it's generally a 6 out of 10. Spiral into Solitude, 1 and a white, enchantment aura. Enchant creature can't attack or block. We've seen this effect 100 times. It's really nice, right? 2 mana, just remove their creature from doing combat things. Then you can pay 1 and white, blight 1 to sacrifice this aura, exile enchanted creature. Which isn't bad because that's actually pretty cheap. If they're trying to get it back, you can do that in response. And you just take the blight 1, but some of these decks can actually turn blight into a benefit, so that's pretty nice. I'll say this is probably a 5 out of 10. Sun-Dappled Celebrant, 4 and 2 white, 5/6 with Convoke and Vigilance. So, depending on the deck that you're in, Kithkin, Treefolk, something like that, you might be able to play this out as like a 2-mana 5/6. That's awesome. That's huge. And just because of that, it's going to get a 4 out of 10 from me, maybe even a 5 out of 10. But if you do play it just for its base mana value and stat line, it's a little below, but not a whole lot. And it does have some pretty good protection in the fact that it has Vigilance, because a lot of what we've seen so far is tapped or attacking. No, I guess attacking creatures would still, attacking creatures would still get by. And the other one was 4 damage, so it wouldn't have done anything anyways. Yeah, I like this enough, though. It's at least a 4 out of 10. All right, Thought Weft, Imbuer, 3 and a white, Kithkin Advisor, 0/5. Whenever a creature you control attacks alone, it gets +X/+X until end of turn, where X is the number of Kithkin you control. This is pretty solid, specifically in the Kithkin deck. It's not going to be great in the other ones. That being said, it is expensive for what is effectively a strong defender. So you got to be careful with it. 4 out of 10. Timid Shield Bearer, 1 and a white, Kithkin Soldier. That's adorable art. So 2 mana 2/2, you can pay 5. Creatures you control get +1/+1. I mean, these effects need to exist in these decks, especially when they're go wide. Never going to hate on it. It's a good 2-drop. 4 out of 10. Tributary Vaulter, 3 mana 1/3 flyer. Whenever this creature becomes Merfolk. Whenever this creature becomes tapped, another target Merfolk you control gets +2/+0 until end of turn. So it is effectively getting its stat line. It's just it just goes elsewhere. Would have loved to see this be a 3/3 flyer, but hey, the Merfolk are buffing each other up. I think it's fine. 4 out of 10. Wanderbrine Preacher, 1 and a white, creature, Merfolk Cleric. Whenever this creature becomes tapped, you gain 2 life. So again, that's good synergy with like Convoke and that sort of thing, but it's really just a baseline 2-mana 2/2. I would like to see a little bit more off of these typically. Like for example, we have the Scrying one in Avatar. That one's really good. This one's just gain life. If you happen to have gain life synergy, is great, but if not, I'm going to give this one a 3 out of 10. Wanderbrine Trapper, a single white 2/1, pay 1, tap another target creature you control, and then you can tap target creature and opponent controls. That is a lot of hoops to jump through to tap a target creature and opponent controls, but I'm happy with the 1-mana 2/1 anyways, so no complaints. 4 out of 10. It doesn't get a bump from me after that though, because that is tough to do. All right, and then last but not least, Winnowing, 6-mana sorcery, but it has Convoke. You can do it for cheaper. For each player, you choose a creature that player controls. Then each player sacrifices all other creatures they control that don't share a creature type with the chosen creature they control. That's pretty huge. This is a really cheap Kindred Dominance, I think is the name of that card, because you can Convoke this out and basically 2 mana, almost one-sided board wipe, as long as you're not playing other Kindred decks. Which is crazy. Now, in this whatever it's called, why is this is gonna be like a special version? Yep, that's a special version, all right. Gotcha. Collector Booster exclusive, in case you guys want to try to pull a $250 card. But anyways, this is strong, so you're probably gonna play this for 3 or 4 mana, and if you're in a Kindred deck. You don't want to play this if you're in a non-Kindred deck, because there's the chance that your opponent's in a Kindred deck. If your opponent is in a Kindred deck, which there's a lot of them in this set, and I mean a lot of them in this set, especially with Changeling, I actually think this is going to underperform in Limited, okay? Because more often than not, you're only playing this if you're in Kindred, but then there's a good chance, I'd say 50% or higher, that your opponent's also in some level of Kindred, in which case this kind of does nothing. So you got to be careful with this. I'm going to give it a 5 out of 10 hesitantly and say, look, in Constructed, this is great because you're so much more likely to go up against different types of things. But man, oh man, do you need to be careful with this. I love it though. I think it's really strong. Just not really in Limited. So Limited, I'm giving it a 5 out of 10. Be very careful, maybe even a 4 out of 10, because I do think it can really backfire or just be kind of ineffective, in which case it's a waste of mana and tapping your creatures. So there we go. Those are my opinions. We had a couple of really strong white cards there. I know I gave at least 1 9 and 1 10 out, or I might have given 2 10s out there, especially with the flipping cards. Those things were really strong. So yeah, super excited which those ones are also really interesting, because if you cast them for the white side, but then they have to do with green for the one flipping one, they have to do with black for the other flipping one. So they're almost multicolored cards, even though we're in our monocolored parts of this review. Let us know what you think of these cards down below. I am still super stoked for Llorwyn. It looks like so much fun. I cannot wait to be drafting and playing this set. So thank you guys so much for all the support and the love. We cannot wait to make more videos. We'll see you guys in the next one, which is going to be blue cards. But until then, may those rolls be ever in your favor, and we'll see you guys next time. Peace out. Bye, y'all.